being difficult. Go Cubs.
Stop
Why is it not going?
See? Yeah, there's a 30-second delay, all right.
Welcome to the United States Sports Academy and the weekly sports talk show. I'm Dr. Brett Simmelmacher. I'm sitting in for Dr. Butler. He's up in Birmingham at a
Dean's Conference.
Dean's Conference. To my left, your right, would be Dr. Cromartie.
Yes.
Director of Doctor
I'm
Studies.
ecstatic. Game 7, go Cubs.
And to my right is Mr. Ben Billman, one of our teaching assistants. This week, you know, if the Indians would have won last night, we'd probably be talking about the World Series. But as Dr. Cromartie said, we got a Game 7 tonight for all the marbles.
Yep, there's going to be one happy city and one disappointed city.
Yes.
Because
Because both of them
the
have-
city on Lake Michigan will probably be jumping for joy.
But today we're going to talk about the early preseason rankings are out for men's college basketball. And I forgot to mention Sarah behind the scenes as our producer, executive producer of Sports Talk. She's also with us. But we're
Men's
gonna talk-
AP and the women's AP
Yeah,
poll.
women's and men's AP poll is out. We're going to talk a little bit about that. Everything that I've read so far, you know, they're hyping Duke pretty much.
Well,
What are your thoughts on that, Ben?
Duke's got the best recruiting class in the country, and they have Grayson Allen coming back, who's a first-team All-American preseason candidate. I think they're going to be exceptional, but the ACC is so deep. They're probably going to take some hits in the ACC, but
It's probably going to take us some time to gel.
I think it's going to take time to gel. And you know, it seems like every other year or two, you've got this group of freshmen who come together and do phenomenal, but most of the time it does take some time for these freshmen to start to gel.
you know, we can hype it all we want to, and this is the same thing that we do with football, preseason, all that stuff. We come out and we start talking about everything and how great one team is going to be and how deep a conference is going to be, which doesn't amount to a whole heck of a lot because we prognosticate, and we've often been wrong in both football and basketball, and nobody pays attention to that. So I think it's great that we sit and we talk about it, and we have comment in regards to the so-called basketball experts picking both the top team and everything like that. But what it boils down to, and I think you're right, there's a lot of talent in college basketball all over the place. The bottom line is if you don't have leadership, you're not going to have a very good season, period. And I'm not so sure that there are that many young players coming out today, coming into the college scene, that are ready to lead.
Well, that's what we
It's
saw
a
last
rare
year
breed.
with Ben Simmons.
Yes,
Phenomenal player, great
but
athlete,
was never existing.
no leadership.
Exactly.
skills. And they didn't even make the tournament, and
Yeah.
he went number 1 in the draft.
But see, that's a whole different dichotomy because the NBA is looking for something different. They're not particularly out for that kid that is capable of taking their team from day one to the NCAA championship. I mean, think about it. How many of the experts last year picked Villanova from day one?
Probably not any.
None.
Probably none.
So,
And
I mean-
to me, it all boils down to who's playing well at the end of the season.
Bingo.
Goes on a run. Yeah, same thing we saw in college baseball with Coastal Carolina. Nobody would have picked them at the beginning of the season.
Right.
But then let's look at conference-wise in the top 25. You've got 5 teams from the ACC, the Big Ten, and the Big 12.
Traditional basketball powerhouse
Exactly.
conferences.
The Pac-12 has 3. The Big East has 3. The WSCC has the normal 2 in St. Mary's and Gonzaga.
Gonzaga.
And then the AAC has 1, and the A10 has 1, and the one that we talked about before we came on the air was SEC only has 1 team, and that's Kentucky.
But we always have Kentucky.
Right.
And ultimately, we'll have a couple of surprise teams come out of the SEC and will be quality caliber teams. And come NCAA time, we might have 2 or 3 or more that would be capable of making the tournament and and demonstrating that the SEC is capable of playing basketball.
And I think you'll see that in all these conferences.
Yeah.
You know, you never know what's going to happen in the ACC. Like you said, I think they're pretty deep. I'm kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Partial to North Carolina State because I'm good friends with Mark Godfrey.
Well, don't show your bias on it.
But they're going to have a pretty good team.
They're going to have a great team.
They're going to have a darn good team. They had 3 guys sitting out last year that he looked down the bench couldn't use.
And they still might finish middle of the pack in the ACC.
Well, they're picked 6 preseason, but they could easily finish in the top 3.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You know, with a couple wins here and there.
Exactly.
You know, the Big Ten's the same way.
Yeah.
You never know what Ohio State's going to do.
Michigan is another one.
Wisconsin is another one.
Yeah.
Actually, Illinois is going to have a respectable basketball team this year.
Yeah.
But see, then again, let's go all the way out back to the Big 12 because Kansas and Bill Self are always on the horizon. Bill Self is just a guy that compiles kids and gets them to play, and they play well, and they're always to be contended with.
What do you think is going to happen, Ben, with Louisville? I mean, is this the allegations that came out and the what came down from the NCAA with Coach Pitino and all that? Do you think that's going to affect their play on the court?
I don't think it will. He's got a lot of talent coming back from last year. They sat out last year's tournament because they got the suspension and were cut off from postseason play. I still expect them to be in the running for a Sweet 16 type level. I don't know if they have the talent to go farther, but I think once Pitino gets on the court with those guys, the allegations will be swept away, and they'll be fine. They're not going to be title contenders probably, but they'll be in that next tier of teams that will compete for the second weekend.
But if their big man from last year can come back and he's improved upon his presence in the middle, they are going to be something to contend with because that is one of the things that you don't see much of in college basketball anymore is a dominant big man.
Okay, we've got a question.
Oh, we got a question?
Yeah, we have a question. Who are your surprise teams for the
I
season?
was just going to get to that.
Okay, should I go first?
Yes.
I have 5 teams. I know that seems like a lot, but I'll start out. I think Dayton, they have a lot of experience. They're playing in the Atlantic 10 where they can win a lot of games, get a high seed, and do well. I've got Virginia Tech. They're an up-and-coming team in the ACC. I've got Princeton out of the Ivy League, who has a lot of experience coming back. And actually, the Ivy League the last few years has won a game almost every year. Harvard and Yale last year. I've got Auburn, who I think is going to be much improved if they can keep the injury bug away. They could finish second in the SEC behind Kentucky. And Chattanooga, who made the tournament last year, lost to Indiana in the first round, but has a lot of returning talent as well.
Well, I think you're going to take a look at how deep the Big 12 is going to be. I think Iowa State, they didn't lose much. They've got some guys coming back that can fill in for a couple of the losses that they had, and I think they might be a surprise team. Then again, I think Illinois is another team that's going to surprise a few people in that. I'm going to stick with a little bit of the Ivy League. I actually think that both Harvard and Yale will be serious contenders in that because of the fact that they have been steadily coming on if you look at it from a 4 to 5 year period, Harvard, Yale, and then you throw a pin in there and that. So, that little league is pretty tight right now with some competition and some competitive players in that. And then I'm going all the way out west, all the way. Never ever discount Gonzaga and St. Mary's.
Sure.
My number one is University of Texas. I think Shaka Smart is one of the best coaches in the country. He's got a lot of talent coming back, and you can't ever discount what he did at VCU. And that's what I was going to bring up was the absence of Butler and VCU. They're not even on the sheet for the top 25. I think teams like that take that to heart
Mhm.
and work that much harder and try to.
Will the
people wrong.
impact of what the University of Texas is experiencing right now in their football program have any impact on their basketball program? Don't discount that.
I don't think it will.
I don't think so either.
I think it's two totally different entities. I just think Shaka Smart has the ability to, you know, he did it at VCU. He has the ability to what's the word I want to use, to get those things out away from his players, put more emphasis on himself.
And I agree with you on that, but take into account the fact of the matter is that if they start out, open the gate up, and they lose their first couple of games, that's going to have
That
an
could,
impact.
yeah.
That's going to have a big impact. So,
All right, so before we get to the women, what's your final four, Ben?
Right now, if I had to choose a Final Four, I'd go with Duke. I think Coach K can get that group together and get there. Kansas and Bill Self, they've been so close so many times. They lost to Villanova last year in the Elite Eight. I think they get over the hump and get there. I like Oregon out of the Pac-12. Coach Dana Altman out there has put together a great team. Again, they're another team that made the Elite Eight last year and then lost to Oklahoma. I think they take that jump. And I also like Wisconsin out of the Big Ten. This would be their third Final Four in 4 years. They've got a lot of experience, and I think they're going to be the top team in the Big Ten.
Okay. Well, like I said, it's always a crapshoot in that, but
It's true.
I'm gonna go with. I think I'm gonna base mine based on the personalities of the coaches. I'll stick with Kentucky, and I also think that Louisville is going to prevail this year. And I will concur with you that I think that Kansas is going to do quite well in that. But I also think that Oklahoma is going to be in there because Lon Kruger is a shifty little guy. He's a great recruiter, and I think he's probably going to have a couple of guys that are just going to light it up out there
He's
this
done
year.
well
And I think
wherever-
Lon, wherever he's going, he's done quite well in that. But again, I think a sleeper in the league is going to be Illinois.
I agree with Fred. I'm going to go with Kentucky. I'm going to go with who I talked about earlier in Texas. I think they could be a surprise. I'm going to go with coaching experience with Tom Izzo and Michigan State Spartans. And then
But
my
do they have a cast of characters that can really bring it this year?
Only time's going to tell. I
Yeah,
think the Big
sure.
Ten's
That's-
gonna-
you're right,
I think
you're right.
I think the Big Ten's going to be as good as any conference in
Oh,
the
yeah.
country.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to see that when the ACC Big Ten Challenge comes up. And then my last team is my surprise team, North Carolina State. I got to say
There's no
that.
surprise.
Okay. Anyway, the big question with the women is what's going to happen with UConn. They're not number one. They're not number two. They're number three in the country. They lost the big trio of Stewart, Tuck, and Jeffries. They're gone. They've got them ranked third in the country, but we all know
That's
that.
only in one poll.
Yeah, but
He's got a heck of a class coming in. You can never discount him. So again, great. They start the year out at number 3. But let's see what happens at the end of the year.
Exactly.
They'll be
who
number
we
1.
can talk about another team.
I think Notre Dame.
No,
I think
Notre
they're-
Dame. Hey, God bless Muffin. Let's hope it. And they're going to be good, but it's UConn.
It is, but they had their stretch. I mean, Brianna Stewart's career was maybe the best college basketball career ever, men's or women's. I mean, 4 national championships. She's gone. I think this is the year Notre Dame sneaks in there and gets one before UConn's team
Reloads.
experiences gels, and then next year they're back to the dominance that they've been.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give Notre Dame 1 year. This is their 1 year window. They need to do it this year, and then UConn will be back next year at the top.
But here's the thing that we better mention. We just came off an Olympic year. And if you looked at various nations throughout the world, there were a lot of UConn players out there playing. And Canada had a couple of UConn players, and they went deep. I don't think you can discount them. I think they've got a good assemblage of athletes coming back with some experience, and they're ready to get out there and show people. I can't tell you. I didn't see anybody from Notre Dame or Baylor or on anybody
But
else's
what I
elected
think-
team. Did you?
But what I think
Yeah,
is the reason
Notre
they're
Dame
number
had.
3 in this
You did?
particular
Notre
poll.
Dame did, yeah.
The reason I think they're number 3 in this particular poll is just like any other sport. When you lose 3 people like they lost,
Oh, yeah.
it's going to take time for them to play without those 3 individuals. And they may by the end of the season, and they may throughout the entire season be as good as they were last year. But I think it's just going to take some time.
We got to let the ball drop. There's just no question about that. But I think that Gino is as good as anybody in coaching, and I don't think that he's going to bring kids in that he does not
No.
think that can be a contributing factor from day one.
We got some key games in the women's coming up. November 17th, number 2, Baylor plays at UConn. December the 1st, South Carolina, which is a sleeper as well, plays at number 8, Texas. On December the 7th, UConn again plays at Notre Dame. Right now they're 3-1. By the time they get there, they could be 1-2.
Yeah.
Probably, yeah.
And quite possible. Then at number 17, Washington at number 25, Oregon State, January the 1st. Oregon State made a run last year. They've got a pretty good coach out there.
Washington was pretty good too.
Yeah.
And number 1, the last game, February 19th, number 1, Notre Dame at number 14, Syracuse. And all those rankings could change for the better or the worse by the time those games come around. But
Syracuse was the national runner-up.
yeah,
One thing-
we got to mention Syracuse because
Yeah.
they've got an academy grad coaching that team.
One thing I look at the top 25 for the women, and I don't see one mid-major on this list.
I don't either.
And I think the women right now lack parity, and I think that's hurting them a lot. That I think if some of the smaller schools.
Why do you say that they're lacking parity right now? The
Yeah.
parity is as great as it's ever been in women's college basketball because we've got teams out there where it's not. It might be UConn that's perpetually on the throne, but
They've
they've
set
got
the
all
bar.
these other folks coming, and they're after him, and they're proceeding to go after him. The reason that the mid majors aren't doing it quite well is because the trickling down of the talent that is out there is not going to those mid majors. They're sticking with the major programs right now.
Yeah.
Now, all it's going to take is for 1 or 2 of those mid majors one of those coaches to be able to convince one of those big time players to come to their program and be there, and it's going to be on because University of South Florida last year.
They talked about Gino Warren talked about
I know, but
the AAC and how those teams are getting
they're coming. They're coming
And
after.
South Florida was
And
one of the teams.
Exactly. And South Florida didn't lose anybody, and they're going to be right back on the scene this year. So do not count that out because they're getting folks to come and take a look at their programs. And now these coaches are saying, "Wait a minute, look down the line. Let's see what's happening with them." So they're going to be contending with it.
I see some of these teams though, like Elena Deladon went to Delaware and had a phenomenal career there, but Delaware has not been able to hold that success. I agree. I see some of these AAC programs and Big East programs and other programs having a year or 2 of success, but can they sustain it over a 10 to 12 year period?
James Madison's always good.
I don't know.
NCAA.
I don't know if they can do that. I think some of these schools could get a recruit, bring him in, have him there for 3 or 4 years, but can they sustain that success like the top 10 here, which, 8 or 9 of these top 10, are going to be at the top year after year after year.
Another one Gino talked about in that conference was Temple.
Temple.
Yeah.
Yep.
He was very high on their coach. I can't remember.
She's
his name.
turned it around down
Yeah.
there.
So do you want to pick the Final Four for the women?
I think the top 4, I know it's cliche, but Notre Dame, Baylor, UConn, South Carolina. I think I like I said I like Notre Dame, but I also like South Carolina. Don Staley, the coach there, has done a phenomenal job. 33-2 last year. I look to them as the second best team in women's basketball.
Anything else on?
Well, I mean, you've got to contend with the top four. There's just no question about that. But I think that we also got to look and see what some of those sleepers might be. I think the university, I just mentioned, the University of South Florida's got a great team. We've got a lot of talent coming back. I think they got to be recognized. I actually think DePaul, and they're listed. They're listed low down, but DePaul has got some talent coming back, and supposedly, I don't know for sure or not. They've got a girl that was a freshman last year that is really going to be a major player in their system this year. So we got to wait and see if she comes out and is really a shining star in that. But ultimately, in the end, I think it's going to boil down to Baylor, UConn is going to come out there.
Well, I think
NC State, or not NC State, South Carolina is going to be good too. So
I think a couple teams that could sneak in there would be Maryland, just because of their coach,
Brenda Freeze.
yeah.
And Texas is supposed to be very, very good this year. And then Stanford, I don't think you can count them out.
Yeah, and I'd love to see Tennessee, in honor of Pat Summitt,
Sure.
have a good year. I don't know if they can challenge for a championship, but at least to honor her in a way that they play hard and are very, very solid.
that would be great, but that would be an exception to the rule too, because we all know that when you follow great coaches, it's a tough, tall.
Yes. Yes.
Well, did you guys also notice that the SEC is better in women's
Yeah.
hoops than men's hoops?
I got
And
that listed.
South Carolina has become the Tennessee of the SEC, because if you remember, it was always Tennessee.
Yeah.
Now South Carolina is at the top of the SEC.
Well, that pretty much does it for our expert choices.
What expertise?
Yeah. But next week, we're going to have University of South Alabama coach Joey Jones on the show. So make sure that you tune in, ask your questions.
And we could be talking about the Cubs winning the World Series.
Yeah.
And root for your favorite team tonight.
The drought
There are
ends
some
for one of the
college-
cities.
There are some college football games, or a college football
Yeah,
game.
there is.
The MAC's starting to play, every Tuesday, Wednesday this week?
Yeah.
Or Tuesday, Thursday. But there is a game tonight. I know there's a
There
game
was a
every
game
night.
last night too.
Yeah.
2 games last night.
Yeah, Western Michigan rolled over Ball State. And who was the other?
And Northern Illinois played. Northern Illinois played.
Yeah.
Western Michigan.
Somebody
No,
sent
but-
a message in, says go Cubs.
Go Cubs.
Go Cubs.
Go Tribe. Either way, I think it's going to be a great game. I hope it's a great
The
game.
drought ends.
At one place. One
One,
place or
two,
another.
yeah.
All right.
Have a great week in sports, and we'll see you next week with Joey Jones.